Well, the world has still gone nutty, buddy, even downright cruddy, buddy. Wish I missed the past, buddy, but there's still Buddycast. No, don't be naughty, go meet a buddy here on Buddycast.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the founder and host of Buddycast, Nick Sorensen.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of everybody's favorite show, Buddycast. I'm your host, Nick Sorensen. Thank you for joining us today. I know it's been a while since we've done a Buddycast. I've been extremely busy, got some things brewing here and there, but we're back. And we're not only back, we're back with my new buddy, Ian. How you doing, Ian?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you again for joining us today.
No problem.
So,
Yeah,
Ian,
I like doing these podcasts. These are fun. So most times when people say, "Do you want to do one?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure. Let's do it." Doesn't even have to be around. Most of the time, people want to do them around, obviously December. You're the first person to come afterwards and say, "Hey, you know what? Let's do this," because I think a lot of people since they associate me so much with that film, they're like, "I don't want to see you after Christmas,"
we're happy to see you any time of the year.
So I'm like, I'm not a Christmas ornament, so I can still talk about other things.
That should be. You should quote that and put that you should quote that and put that like on your wall somewhere. I'm not a Christmas ornament.
Yeah, it's like people get, like we do something in October, people get a little hurt because they're like, "Not Christmas yet." It's like, who cares? Shut up.
Yeah, but I do have to ask you about the movie, right? We got to talk about it. So first off, how did the role of Randy come to be for you?
Well, I mean, it was just a routine audition. I was a child actor. That's what I did. All of us were. We all auditioned for it. Your agent will call you up and say they're casting a new movie, and then they would sometimes they would give you specifics, but they didn't really give a whole lot of specifics on what this particular movie was. It was a holiday film, a comedy, and you'll be playing the role or you'll be auditioning for the role of the younger brother. And that's all you really did. You didn't really know a whole lot. And a lot of times you don't really ask. You just want the job. So even at 8 years old, I just wanted the job. So you go in and and Randy himself, I mean, he didn't really have a whole lot of lines. So it was really just more of an audition process of looking for a certain personality and a certain look of child that they were looking for. And it's a lot of times in this business is, sometimes casting agents don't, or producers and directors don't really know exactly what they want at first. They just want to see people, and then that person will jump out and they'll go, "Okay, you get the part." So if you're an actor or an actress and you don't get the part, don't take it so hard. It could just be you just weren't the look that they wanted for the film, and don't worry about it. If you're even auditioning at this point in time in your career and having a successful run, at least getting auditions, then you're in a better place than most. So don't give up. Don't beat yourself up.
So you really went into that role not knowing much about it, not knowing you were just told little brother.
Exactly. I'm probably sure I knew about as much as what the film was called. It was called A Christmas Story, and that was it. And you really didn't, But that's the nature of the business. I guess they liked me enough that they brought me back for a callback, which was the second audition, and then another one to meet the producer and director. So I was getting down to like the final stages. Then Bob Clark flew me up to his house, and I did a screen test up there. And that was just basically they he didn't even really, I think, videotape it. He just had me act out a bunch of the scenes, some of the more famous scenes that people most remember. And after that, he was like, "You're our Randy. You got the part."
Mhm.
He was like,
What did it feel like when he told you got the part?
it's a combination of different things, you know, because even at that age, I mean, number one, when I was at that age, I knew exactly what I was doing. I knew I was an actor. I knew that everything like that. So this wasn't one of these things. You know, I knew what I was doing. So you have the emotions of, yay, I got the part. You have the emotions of, wow, I'm going to be making a movie. And then there's the emotions of, I'm going to see how these are done. And then eventually, I'm going to be one of those guys on the screen. Because even at 8, I mean, I was a huge, you know, I was also a fan of movies. So I got to see both worlds. You know, there's a world that you go to the movie theater. This was back when that's all you could do was go to a movie theater if you want to see a movie. And you enjoy the movie and you get heavily, you know, emotionally invested in the movie. And now I'm on the other end where I get to, you know, I get to be part of that process and make that. So it's, you know, it's very exciting to get your first film. It's good. It's exciting to get your next film. So your next job and the job after that. It's basically this business is it's
Mhm.
it's like a marathon with no finish line. It's just you're just going past, you know, mile markers after mile markers and just see, you know, just to see how far you've gone. But there's no finish line. So
Yeah. Did you think the movie would ever be as big as it is today?
I I don't really it's hard to say because, you know, anytime you're making a movie or any project for that fact, you're hoping that it is. You know, you're hoping that it's a big, you know, it's successful and everybody loves it. But with this movie, it was slightly different because when it came out, nothing really happened with it. It got good reviews, but it just didn't get the audience participation that it needed. Um, Not a whole lot of people came out. You know, the studios didn't really do a lot of promotion and advertising for it. And so the people that did see it, they did love it, but it just never became a big hit. And it wasn't until 20 years later, once the marathon happened on TBS, the 24-hour marathon, that's when it really started to become more popular. So it's way more popular now than it was back in 1983.
Mhm.
Is that going to continue and grow? Sure, you know, it might. It might taper off, you know, eventually. Um, but do I get anything for it? No, I don't. So I just get to be, I just get to be part of a famous movie. That's it.
Mhm. Now you know I gotta ask: is it like on your house with the 24 marathon, or
Oh no,
did you
I don't, no, I don't.
you just do your own thing on that day?
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
I don't watch. I don't need to. You know,
Mhm.
there's other people that.
Mhm. And you know, I have to also ask, do you remember like one of your favorite scenes and your favorite line from the movie?
Um, Favorite line? I don't really have a favorite line. Um, Anything the dad had to say probably was, you know, a favorite line. Not a finger was, you know, a great line. I don't know why. Favorite scene, even to this day, is just the whole Higby scene. You know, that whole scene because that was like the first week of shooting actually. But when you watch that scene, I mean, just that scene alone could just be a standalone short film. You know, it told so much of a story, and to me, it was just the funniest part of the film because there was just so much going on. You had the elves, you had, you know, Santa Claus. You know, Jeff Gillen playing, you know, the Santa Claus, and I mean, the original Bad Santa. If you think about it, I mean, he's one of the first on-screen Santas that just hated his job and hated kids and kind of brought the truth of, you know, what that's about. And it's kind of it's similar to they almost kind of took Norman. It's like Norman Rockwell and Mad Magazine wrapped together, you know, and that's what it is. What was supposed to be this sweet, you know, enchanting, you know, holiday spirit is now just this you know, night of chaos.
I was just about to say that, just like whole chaotic, just
So
everything. Like you got 5 minutes to see Santa, and you're
going wrong.
Mm-hmm. Was the slide fun?
Not at first, no. No, I did not like the slide at first. I don't. When you see me coming down the slide and Randy's actually crying, those are actually real tears of fear because I did not like that slide at all. But Bob thought it would be great to get the realism, so he's like, just throw him down the slide, and I didn't want to do it. That's why you see that, and that's just me being pissed.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that was real. Like I thought it was just like he told you just cry when you go down the stairs.
Oh no, because I couldn't cry. I'm not a I can cry in real life, you know, if
Mm-hmm.
you expect me, but on screen I am a horrible fake crier. Or if somebody, you know, you see these actors and you know these actresses, and they'll just burst into tears, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just so emotional. Like you see the tears streaming down, and you know when somebody's really crying because their nose gets a little red and their eyes
Yeah.
get puffy, as opposed to just somebody who's like, it's like, and I just don't know how they do it.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, you know, you have to really psych yourself up. And that's what they would try to do because there were some scenes where Randy was supposed to cry and they wanted to get real tears. And I couldn't do it. It just something my brain just would not, it would just like block those because I didn't want to cry. You know, I didn't want to cry in real life. I hated crying. You know,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times I would cry because I was crying.
Mm-hmm. So with those real tears during the scene when you're like hovered under the kitchen sink.
No, that was fake.
Really?
Yeah, that was just acting. I could not get real tears going. So I just tried, you know, Bob would just say, okay, you know, try it like, say it like this, you know, try it like that. And then he really coached me on how to, you know, perform that. But yeah, I mean, I just could. Peter, on the other hand, could do it. So after he shot his eye, you know, he got hit with the BB gun and he's really crying, you know, and I remember seeing his mom, you know, psyching him up and him getting, you know, getting all emotional. So he can pull it off, but I just could not do it.
Mm-hmm. That brings up my next question. What was it like working with your co-stars like Peter, Melinda, Darren?
I mean, everybody was great. There was no, I mean, I can't really, you know, I can't say, you know, I was 8 years old. So
Mhm.
obviously, you know, there's not going to be much drama with me or with everybody. You know, I'm just the little kid who's in the movie. Peter was great, got along, you know, as well as anybody could. I mean, you know, we're still kids, but we got along like brothers and we got along well. But then occasionally we'd fight. Um, Melinda was absolutely wonderful. I mean, you know, just very, very sweet, very kind. And, you know, not to mention, I mean, I was so excited to work with her because she was in a movie called Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And that was one of my favorite movies. So I got to work with this person. Another exciting thing about being in a movie is I get to work with this person who was in this movie about aliens. So I just bugged the shit out of her half the time, you know, about that movie because I wanted to know, like, the aliens, how they make, what were the aliens? You know, she would tell me, like, oh, well, you know, they were puppets and, you know, they were controlled by strings and controlled by rods. And I learned that that one puppet at the end that does the little, you know, thing, you know, and he had a name. His name was Mookie. That's what they called him. And it's like not a lot of people know that, but you know, so that was cool. Darren, on the other hand, he was nice, but you know, Darren was really more. He was a professional,
Mhm.
so he had a lot. He actually had a lot. Um, he had a lot vested interest in this film. So you know, it was very important to him as well to make sure everything went right and that it looked good. So he didn't have a lot of time for antics, you know, of an 8-year-old. And so I was told ahead of time, you know, at least by my mom, that sometimes older actors don't like to work with younger actors. And it's nothing against you, but let's not find out the hard way. And let's just be on our best behavior when we're around this person. And that's pretty much all
Mhm.
I'm sure, I probably got on his nerves a couple times. I'm an 8-year-old kid. I
I was
work
about to,
I work with kids, for years, and it's like that's just what they do is they just get on your nerves, and you just have to go, stop. So, unfortunately, when you're working with a child actor like me, when someone says stop, you stop. Most kids don't stop. They just go, yeah, like nope. Then go to the principal. You're done. I'm done with you.
Mhm.
So that's why it's like people say it's like you can't talk to the kids like that. I go, you don't understand. The kid grew up in Hollywood. That's how we were talked to. We listened and it worked.
Mhm. Mhm. And what was it like for you when they announced they're doing a sequel to this movie, when they're bringing it back and they're bringing back like Peter, and they're
Well,
bringing back you?
at first, we didn't know they were going to do a sequel. We heard about it the way everybody else did on the internet, that they were making a sequel and that Peter was coming back. No one called us from the production company. So we just figured, and we got this news in January and they said they were starting production in February. So at that point in time, you know, and I hadn't talked to Peter in years, like over 10 years. And the other cast, I asked them, I said, "Do you guys know anything about this?" And they said, "No, we don't know anything about it." But when we heard the news that it was in January that they were making the sequel, Peter was coming back, and they were starting production in February. We just automatically assumed that everything has been, cast. So I don't know. We didn't know if he was actually going to have the other characters or if it was just going to be about him. Um, we didn't know. Just we didn't really make a fuss about it. We just said, well, let's wish him luck. See what happens. Then in February, that's when we started getting the calls from production saying that we want you guys in it. So once we heard that, I mean, that was kind of one of those. You ever have one of those dreams where in your dream something's going on and then you wake up and you tell your buddy or something, you're like, dude, I had this really crazy dream last night. There's no way that this would ever happen in real life. That's what it felt like. It felt just like one of those dreams. Like I'm doing this part again. This is all coming back. We're actually doing this. It was so weird. It was one of the weirdest experiences, of my life, I think. And I've done
Mhm.
other parts, and you just sit there and go, okay, you show up and do your lines, and you're excited. But this one it was just bizarre because I never thought this would ever happen, ever. I mean, I'm really glad that I'm not a betting man because I would have bet millions and said they will never make a sequel with the original cast. They've made sequels, but not with the original cast. And the fact that we did it is just mind blowing. You
Mhm.
you
And
know, yeah.
what did it feel like what did it feel like stepping into Randy's shoes again? I mean, more of an older version, of course, but just
That's just it. Um, it's definitely different because you're it's really not the same Randy.
Mhm.
you know. And I was kind of wondering, it's like, what the hell are they going to have me do? How do we make this guy an adult? And I think by making him a millionaire and a world traveler was just kind of, they did that for the irony because I think everybody thinks, oh, he's just going to be some, schlub who lives at home. And I think they did that to throw people off and say, nope, he actually made it and got out of India. So,
Mhm.
but it's it was difficult in a sense. It was fun to do, but it was difficult because and maybe I was just like overthinking it a little too much and not letting go like you're supposed to do as an actor. Oftentimes is um, trying to find ways to mimic certain mannerisms that he had that people would at least recognize.
Mhm.
Because in the particular scene that he had, I mean, it was a very small scene, which I'm happy that I'm so happy for what I got to do. Um, he didn't have any of those moments. Randy always had like a moment in the movie. He couldn't put his arms down. He couldn't get down. He was stuck in a cupboard. Something always happened. And this one, there wasn't anything that happened to him. So he was just being a dick, not wanting to go home. So
And then getting convinced by his brother. Oh, mom's not doing so well. What?
And then so trying to find certain little nuances like in his voice and the certain cadence of his tone and mannerisms that I was trying to think back that I could throw out there. So it was probably one of the most, I don't want to say it was, when I say it's the most challenging part, I don't want it to sound like you know I had to go into this other mindset, this method. That's not what I'm talking about. It was just trying to think of shit to do. Is all this was, and trying to be funny. Think of shit to do and try to be funny at it. That's all it was. So.
Mm-hmm. And what have you been up to? Like, what have you been up to today outside? Like outside of acting, outside of just everything. Give us a little life update.
Well, I mean, there's not really too much that I can talk about right now. I mean, there is stuff that I'm doing, but nothing that you can see. I mean, I'm working on this one project. I can't spill the beans just yet on what it is because the beans are just growing. So I don't even have the beans yet to spill. But it's an idea that I came up with a long time ago, and it just kind of was one of those ideas that you have and you go, maybe I can't get that done, so you push it off to the side. And but after doing the sequel and being back on a movie set and seeing just a major production and being part of that again, and reuniting with my fellow cast members and spending this past holiday with them for the 40th anniversary, it just kind of rekindled this idea of like, you know what, just try it, just move in that direction that you want to go and see what happens. And that's what I've been doing, is just kind of getting this. I mean, the only thing I can tell you is yes, it's a movie idea. That's all I can tell you, because
Got it.
I get very superstitious that if I go too heavy into what I'm doing, a lot of times what happens is it never manifests. Because I've worked with people before on projects that I've been really, really excited about. And I told them, I said, look, I'm going to be doing these gigs and I'm going to be going across the country. I said, I'd love to tell people what I'm doing. And, because everybody always wants to know, well, what are you doing now? What are you doing now? And a lot of these projects were really exciting. And so I'd go and I'd tell them, this is what I'm doing, and this is the character that I'm playing. And then everything would fall apart. Like it would never happen. They would just quit and say, we can't do it. We don't have enough money, or we just don't like the idea anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And, then people ask you, it's like, what happened with that project you were working on? It's like, nothing. So
Like happens.
I don't have the beans yet to spill. So
Well, when you do have the beans, you've got a platform right here that you can come to.
Yes, I will let you know. I will spill beans all over your podcast with that.
Sounds good. Hey, speaking of beans, this is going to sound like a random question, but there's going to be a point behind it. So hear me out on this. You're a coffee drinker, right?
Sure. Yep.
Buddycast actually has a new coffee we're just releasing.
Really?
I'm going to be promoting it on our Facebook page soon, but it's a mix of chocolate and vanilla. It's done by one of our local coffee companies here in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So be on the lookout for that. I'll message you that and maybe send you a bag just to see if you try it.
All right. I definitely will.
Absolutely. I just thought, spill the beans. Hey, perfect opportunity.
That's how you segue.
Yep. So have you also been, I know you were at Steel City Con, because Erie and Pittsburgh are a relative distance from each other. How was that for you?
SteelCon, I mean, that was my fourth time doing Steel City.
Ooh.
So, yeah, I've done it before. That one was different because this past year doing all these was a lot different because number one, it was the 40th anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, we had Peter with us finally. So we had the whole cast. We've never done that before, but we've had everybody together. It was great. I mean, I always have a good time,
Mm-hmm.
in Pittsburgh. just Pittsburgh in general.
Mm-hmm.
I used to work there quite a bit, so
Ooh.
that's where when I was about kids, I used to work in the schools in Pittsburgh. So, yeah, I had a good time. It was a lot of fun. I mean, we got to meet the cast from Scream. They were all wonderful. It was a good time. I mean,
Wonderful. Wonderful. It really is a nice con down there. I've been down there multiple times myself and just doing somebody, as I say, buddy cash shopping. Hey, do you do podcast appearances by chance?
Yeah.
And it's all about, it's not even not just the celebrities that are down there, but just like the vendors too are kind as ever.
Oh yeah,
The artists down there have some of the most amazing work you'll ever see.
yeah.
It's truly a great place.
The only downside to from last year was, and I can see why they did is they gave us our own room.
Mhm.
We had like the Christmas story room, and it was only for us, which is nice, because you actually get your own bathroom.
Ooh,
You
that's always a bonus.
get your own green room, so you get higher up. But when we always would do Steel Con or Steel City, when I did it, they would always put, I was always in the general population area.
Mhm.
That was just always more interesting because you got to see all the people that show up. You get to see all the costumes. The really cool part is when you can see like the person who like put effort into their costume. Like they made their costume. Like you made that, and that's always really cool. And it's fun to walk up to those people and just tell them, hey, great work.
Mm-hmm. And that's the other great thing about it too. It's just the people watching, not in the way of like laughing at them, but just like you said, you see this costume and it's amazing. It's incredible. And the better part about it is this is like for some people, this is their hobby. This is their thing they do outside of work, outside of family. This is their thing. And you can see it with the, like you just mentioned, the effort that they put into it. This is their thing. Like this is what, when they're, like I said, when they're not crunching numbers at home, and they're real life people. They're accountants.
Oh, exactly. I mean, it's like another Halloween for them.
Yeah.
They get to go out and dress up.
Just
and,
be themselves.
Yeah, and then be around like-minded people who are also like them. And I mean, growing up, Halloween was always my favorite. I would dress up and I would would just go out of my way with costumes. I made a costume. This had to have been like 88, 89. And this is when Ghostbusters 2 came out. I was a huge Ghostbusters fan. And I was about 15 years old at the time, but I wanted to go as a Ghostbuster. And you got to think, this is back in 1988. And nowadays, if you wanted to dress up as a Ghostbuster, all you had to do is just pull your credit card out and go online. There's so many places and so many, companies that are producing replicas. I didn't have that back in 1988. I had to make that shit on my own. And we didn't have the internet, so I couldn't get pictures. The only thing that I had to go by, and if you're a Ghostbuster fan, you'll know what I'm talking about. They're in the montage scene where, they're showing like the success. There's one shot, and it's the proton pack on a cover of Omni magazine that does a slide into frame. I had to pause that on the VCR and take pictures with a still shot and then develop the film. And that's all I had to go on to make this proton pack. And you couldn't find the jumpsuits anywhere. I mean, I had to order them, special order, because you couldn't find the right color, everything to go by. So, I mean, I appreciate when you go to stuff like, these conventions and you see these people who, put all this effort. I remember because that's what I did when I was 15 and I wanted to be a Ghostbuster. I had to attach myself. I had to do that. I had to make the goggles, and they didn't have any of that stuff. So it's great that, I know they have these cosplay groups and they have like the Ectomobile and they have the packs and they're just, perfect. And I'm like, that's awesome. But man, I just, I don't know. I'm kind of glad that we didn't have that back then because that kind of sparked the creativity of wanting to build things and have to make things yourself. Um, but I think it's great now that if somebody wants to be a Ghostbuster, you can go to the toy store and buy your whole costume.
Mhm.
So
The other great thing with costumes at these conventions is you can go as the most.
not to cut you off, but just to tie up, just to show you how dedicated that I was while making that costume. And when I was in middle school, I failed 3 classes because I didn't do homework and I didn't study for tests. I spent all night building a proton pack.
Wow.
So that's
Jeez.
Mm.
But the other thing about those costumes is the fact that you can go as just anybody. You can be a Ghostbuster. You can be this. You can go as your favorite comic book character that's not even like the main character in the comic book. And you're going to walk around and 3 people are going to go, hey, sweet, whatever costume,
Yeah, I know. It's I can't believe how far this has come. I mean, I remember and my mom, she was a seamstress and she knew how to sew. So there was a lot of times she would help. I remember it was 1983 or 84. Return of the Jedi came out, and I wanted to go as an Ewok. And so the only thing I was able to find is you could find these like rubber latex masks, of Wicket.
Mhm.
So I got that. My mom actually sewed the bodysuit that I wore. She went out to, the fabric store, got the fake fur, and sewed a bodysuit. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
So I've got 3 more questions for you.
Mhm.
The first one is if they're going into like a Randy perspective, what does Randy think of Buddycast?
What does Randy think of Buddycast? You said.
Yeah.
I think well, the fact that you asked Randy to be on the Buddycast, Randy has a high opinion of you. So
Awesome. Love it. Now, I ask these 2 questions to all my buddies that come on the show. First off, you're not a guest, you're a buddy.
all right.
And my buddy Jonas Kane from #Positivity wants to know, in your own words, what does it mean to be someone's buddy?
That's a great question. What does it mean to be somebody's buddy? Because I think if I can put it to you this way, because I have a good friend of mine. His name is Mo. He's a really good friend, but we don't hang out that often, and we certainly don't talk that often. But I consider him to be one of my best friends. And one of the things is because we've always been there for each other. And we can argue like you wouldn't believe. We used to work together. We would get in arguments almost to the point where one of us would have to step outside because we didn't want to get violent. But that's how badly we would argue and how much. And then at the end of the day, I'd turn and say, hey, you need a ride to the train station? And he's like, yeah. And we get in the car, like nothing ever happened. And just go back. And that's what it is. You wonder, a buddy is somebody that you understand and they understand you. If that makes any sense.
Absolutely. And you're absolutely right. Buddies, you could be like, every day with people. You're going to have a day where you argue with someone, like that.
All the differences in the world because me and my friend Mo, we are so different. I mean, obviously, just our races alone are different, but we're so different, but we get each other. We get it. It's like
Exactly.
you, this is me. This me likes that part of you, and everything.
Exactly.
Those differences, and
and the better part too is it's probably one of your buddies where if someone else messed with him, you'd be the first one to say, no.
Right, exactly. So, but yeah, I think a buddy is it's somebody that they just get you. They understand you. They're not hanging out with you because of something that they can get. They're hanging out with you because they just enjoy your company. You're always going to be there for that person.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. The final question I have for you tonight is what we call the ultimate Buddycast buddy question. You ready for it?
Yes.
What is your advice for anyone out there who wants to go into acting, who wants to be an actor?
Number one thing I always tell people, especially, and this goes for, acting, for filmmaking, for even music or writing. The number one thing I always ask people is, if this just becomes a hobby for the rest of your life, are you going to be happy? And there's no right or wrong answer. There's no, like, if you say no, then get out. If you say yes, you're fine. There's not that. It's just something, ask yourself if this just becomes a hobby. Because it's like I said, this business, it's like running a marathon without a finish line. And you just basically go till you die or quit. Those that's
Yeah.
that's how it ends. Um, but number one is, and see, that's the other thing. Nowadays with acting, I mean, it's so much different now than what it used to be. Where if I wanted to get back into acting, like everybody else is doing, I don't think I could do it. I don't think I could keep up with everybody because it's changed so much. Back when I was, even in my 20s, this was in the 90s, and you wanted to be an actor. There's only a few things that you had to do. One, you had to, try and find an agent, and you just did that by sending a resume with a headshot and a very small cover, just a couple sentences like, "Hi, this is who I am, and here's my experience. Please consider me." That's it, because they don't have time to go read your whole cover letter. They look at your picture, and if they don't like your face, they throw it in the garbage. If they like your face, then they look at the resume. If you have some experience, they put it off to the side. If you have no experience, they throw it in the garbage. Um, that's how you get an agent. You take acting classes, which I'm not always in agreement in taking acting classes. Um, I'm not going to say they're a scam. There are some good acting classes out there, but there are a lot of people out there who are scammers and they are running acting classes. So please be careful if you want to take an acting class. If you're young enough and you're in college, study theater. That's the best acting class you're going to ever have, because you're going to get somebody that's not scamming you. You're paying tuition, so you're going to get a degree in the long run. You get a chance to actually act. So if you want to learn acting, um, do some theater. You might not get paid at first, but those are going to be the best acting classes you're ever going to take, because you're going to be on stage learning and being with other actors. Acting is reacting, and when you're, you have to be on stage with somebody. Doing monologues is great, but when you're actually with another performer right in front of you and you can react off of those words and they can react off words, you can start building stuff and you start finding your voice and who you are as an actor. Um, Other things is, like I said, and like it's changed so much because also people now have this thing called the internet, YouTube, and they can showcase themselves far more than I ever could. So, stick with that. Find something to do. Find an activity. Make a character. Put them online. Do some scene studies. Get together with your friends. Find your buddies. Go talk to your buddies. Your buddies will help you out. So that's the best advice, because as far as becoming successful and making it, I mean, I'm not the person to ask, because I didn't obviously become successful and made it, but I can help you keep your sanity at least in this business. I'll tell you how to do that. Like, I've had lots of friends when who moved out to LA from different parts of this country to become an actor, and I had a lot of friends, and they were actresses, and they would come out and they would, be fans of the film and contact me on Facebook and say, hey, let's hang out. I was like, yeah, okay. And they said they wanted to be an actress. And I said, look, I can't help you get to where you need to be, but I can help you keep your sanity in this state called California, because it's crazy here. Los Angeles it can be vicious. And I can say all those people that made it, they're doing fine today. They may not be successful, but they haven't lost their soul. So don't lose your soul. That's the number one thing that you want to keep. So,
don't lose your soul. Got it.
And it's acting, or film or whatever you want to do, and find the fun of it. Make sure you enjoy it. It's gonna go to your head no matter what. If you make it in this business, it's gonna go to your head. Don't beat yourself up when it does, and all your friends say that you're an asshole. That's gonna happen. Just realize that when it does happen, just do some thinking about it. It does go to your head. I've seen it happen to me. I've seen it happen to other people, and that's when you need to take a step back. So.
Wonderful, wonderful advice. Well, Ian, thank you for being a buddy on Buddycast. It was a true pleasure. And before we close out today's episode, I have one favor to ask you.
Sure.
Whatever you do today, tomorrow, next week, next month, even next year, promise me you're going to go out and you're going to go be someone's buddy.
I'll do that tomorrow.
Perfect. That's what I like to hear. For all my buddies out there.
I'm trying to be somebody's buddy.
For all my buddies out there, this is my buddy, Ian Petrella. Please watch A Christmas Story. It's a classic. You love it. You know the lines.
Yeah.
So, I'm your host, Nick Sorensen. Thank you for joining us on another episode of everybody's favorite show.
Well, the days are going fast, buddy, we've got to make them last, buddy, before they've all gone past, buddy, tune in to Buddycast. But don't be nutty, go make it, buddy, here on Buddycast.